Well, welcome back to our audience. Today we have another episode, and I'm very excited. Helen and I will talk about communication in dream space. Do we talk to others or do we send meeting invites in our dreams for whatever, just to get together or to solve problems? So we'll chat about that. Welcome back, Helen.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Be
So
joining you here in the Dreams Portal.
Oh, yeah. So communication and dream space is quite the subject. Is to me, it's a tool, it's a resource when people, for whatever the reason, let that be the resistance or their own limiting beliefs, which is also a form of resistance, or just the mundane, the rush of the daily lives, cannot set aside that time to go deep into whatever the solution. And then you go to sleep, resistance is off. You might or might not open yourself to that communication, and you find yourself going to places. Sometimes I find myself witnessing things that I said, what is this to me? What's my business being here? Because I always had that policy of, I don't need to know what is not in my place to know, which I sort of learned to change that. And this is a teaching from Jamie Darrow, because whatever happens in that state of astral travel, lucid dreaming, doesn't happen without the previous agreement of all the parts. So I started modifying my limiting beliefs in that sense. So talking about communication in dreams, what's your experience on this? How do you, personal and in your profession, have you used this to help your clients?
I use it with children. I use it with children who are having night terrors. It was Ebby Salinas who introduced it of crow readings.
I
She
know.
introduced this to me, telling me as an experiment. She goes, I'm going to come into your dream to show you how this works. And I'm going to leave something, and you're going to tell me tomorrow what it was that I left there. She goes, and I'm going to write it down on a paper and show it to you. And sure enough, it was she went to the table and left a strawberry there. I was like, so random. She goes, yeah, it was just a red strawberry, something that would catch your eye, but you would know is on the table in your dream. And I thought, how interesting, because I had never even thought about that as a modality. And so as I know that I've probably mentioned this before, one of my grandchildren specifically was having night terrors because of a past life. And it was so distressing to her mom to not be able to comfort her when she was in these states. I would tell my granddaughter, when you go to sleep, I'm going to be there for you. I said, when you start, getting afraid, look for me. I'm going to be in your dream and I'm going to help calm you. You're going to know everything's okay because you see me. And you would see her, my daughter would be on video chat. She goes, she's asleep, she's crying, she's sweating. And I said, I'm going to put my phone by her ear. She's going to hear my voice. And I would tell her, remember, look for me in your dream. And you would see the physical on her, just the relaxing, her breath, her breathing patterns would change and everything. And so I started thinking, okay, well, this is another way. A lot of people have infants that are crying and just can't get to sleep. It was another way to go in there and communicate with them and find what the problem and bring it back and say, okay, this is what you guys can address to help. But it's a very interesting and useful tool. Even I feel for ourselves, like when we have repeated nightmares, things like that, you can actually in that dream state find your, something that you left there, because as we're dimensional, on another dimension, that you left there as that sign that you're okay. This too is a dream, but it's very interesting how you can utilize it in so many ways. How about yourself? How have you used it?
For communication with someone in a deliberate way, I have not initiated it. I do receive messages or confirmations of things that are going to be major decisions in my life. And it comes through the shape of people that I have known in the past and respected very much in the relationship. And when the first experience like that came to me, it was in one of the jobs that I wanted to leave, that I know that the chances of me getting fired were very slim, because not because I was a superstar. It was a matter of statistics. Employers unfortunately try to stay away of what they perceive as a minefield in terms of minorities. That was several minorities combined, not only ethnicity, gender, also my status as protected veteran. So I realized that even when I told my boss that it was okay if he needed to throw my name in the head, that company was going through layoff like every 6 weeks. One day I realized this is not going to happen. So I'm stuck. Back then, I believed that I was at the mercy of whatever, when in reality it's my choice. Like it was my choice to work there. So I had that dream in which I had coworkers telling me, coworkers from another job, just leave, take a break, just leave. And I did. I left. And the money to cover that year came in the form the following day of a letter from another employee that was liquidating the pension fund.
Wow.
So that was at a higher level.
Yes.
That was not the 3D that, okay, I don't have to worry because the money's there, which is something that they were telling me in the dream. No, this goes beyond that. This is a sneak preview of the communication I can get when it comes to problem solving in the dream state. And knowing that I'm a dream master or astral traveler, that was the way that my guidance showed it to me in the shape of these two guys that I had a very high respect. And you know what? Talking about synchronicities, like when we agree on this episode, it was 222. The shirt that I'm wearing now, I don't know if I can is
I love it.
The magician from the tarot. One of those people, one of those guys in my dream, I always assign him this card because of he was a subject matter expert on his field, on his engineering field, and also because he was a mentor and he really enjoyed that job. He was not the kind of person that you could ask him, when are you going to retire? He would tell you, I don't think about retirement. I like coming here every day. I like my job, which is something that you don't hear
that often,
especially these days when the labor landscape and the employment in general, the employment situation has been reframed by the pandemic and many things, the great resignation and everything. But going back to the subject, this is the kind of solution that you can get if you learn the tool and put it in practice. It was given to me just as a teaching moment, because you also need to trust. I could have waken up that day and said, screw this is BS. I'm going to do this because I have these two guys in my dream saying that a dream is a dream. They say, but no, it was the reassurance that this is the path.
It was in motion. It was already in motion, and that was your reassurance, your communication that this is, you're on the right track. Keep doing what you're doing. And I love when it all comes into play and you can stand back and say, that wasn't just coincidence. No. It wasn't. You've got all these supporting factors. And the more you become aware of it happening, the more you feel empowered to use these skills.
Yes.
And I like to tell people, just before you go to bed, set that intention, start small and say, in my dreams tonight, I will find the guidance that I'm seeking. I
Yep.
said, and put that communication there. I said, if you open up those walls, those blocks, you're going to see what you're capable of receiving. There's so much. It's interesting too, when you and your partner are getting communication in dreams that is very similar. That happened to one of my daughters and her husband. They both that night had dreamt my father who had passed, and getting information from him, like reassurance. And it's I love it when I have spirit come to me, but to know that here's your sign. It wasn't just you, it's you and your husband that just got this information, and I know that my son-in-law is a great guy, but he's not quite sure how to take everything. It's kind of like your side with Christianity and spirituality versus the metaphysical. He sees it, but then to get the explanation and to, so he's still in that part, but he's a great guy. But to hear him tell the story of, wait a minute, I was talking to your dad in my dream. You were talking to, it's like, wow. And I was like, those aren't coincidences. They're not. Those are your aha moments.
And your
Those are the
synchronicities.
moments, yes, that are telling you, pay attention. It's all around you. So
yes.
I love it.
Also in communication in dreams, and this happened to me in real life, but I also saw in a show. And I know that you guys always get tired of hearing me talk about sci-fi, but there is a body of knowledge. There are teachings in sci-fi that people are overlooking because they think that sci-fi is just super technology.
Yeah.
No, it's talking about the superhuman in all senses. But anyways, in this episode, in this episode of Doctor Who, it was in the years of Matt Smith, the last season, the name of the doctor. This is interesting because it's what we talk about in this podcast. And what happened is there are these friends of the doctor in Victorian England in the 19th century. Then there is what we call present time, or the point of view of that episode, which is a doctor on Earth, or whatever he was. I don't think he was on Earth. And his companion in this time, and there's a situation going on that the friends of the doctors have been kidnapped. And the friends in the 19th century decided that they were going to put their heads together to find out what was going on. And in the 19th century, the ones that were in the 19th century took some solution or some mix to put them in a deep state of sleep. Another guy who was also in England, but not in the physical location of these ladies that initiated the session. And the session was interesting. It was framed like a seance from back in the day, in the 19th century, Kardashian, Europe, the Allan Kardec, when all the spiritualism movement was there. So they frame it that way. They were in this lady's house, Madame Vastra, who is a reptilian, a female reptilian, and she's living in Victorian England. She's a wealthy woman or wealthy female. And she starts the session as the wife of the doctor is there, River Song. There's also the wife of Madame Vastra, who just died in front of them, because that's part of what's going on. The companions or the friends have been taken, in the way they were taken, it was in the shape of death, in the case of this girl. Then there was another guy who's an alien who was in another town, but also in the 19th century. And he liked to find, he was it's a race that is cloned to be soldiers. So he
Okay.
has all this thing about glorious battle. The whole thing in their life is to die in glorious battle. So he was picking a fight with someone just, to exercise those muscles. And he asked his opponent to knock him down because he needed to join the others. So
Wow.
that's how he did it. And then is the part in present day. So they all got in what we know is the astral plane. And one of the participants is actually dead. Is the doctor's wife. She's dead. And
That's
she's
kinda
not
cool.
realizing that until later in the episode.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, the only way that they could achieve that communication, that conference call or Zoom, was for all of them to meet in the astral plane
Mhm.
and start talking about what's going on and how we're going to execute this plan. So that was in sci-fi. My experience was in college, and I think I shared it in one of the episodes the last season. And it was about this Chilean professor that I had from electromagnetics, Dr. Avila. I had 2 classes, I believe, with him. Anyway, electromagnetics. That's what he teach. He taught in the faculty, and he went back to his country. And I was wondering what happened with this guy, because one of the things that I was asking him in office hours was about the time travel. It was the first professor that explained to me the theory of the cone and the physics associated to that. Anyways,
Uh-huh.
that's another topic. So I was always wondering what happened to Dr. Avila because he had to leave, went back to his country, and lose contact. Nobody stays in contact with a professor, much less one of those that are in the least like list. So, anyways, I had this dream in which I saw him, and he was like marking crosses on the ground in the dirt, and it was nighttime. Again, that thing about the void and that dark space, and he was leaning or just lying on the ground, marking the sign of the cross over and over and over. So fast forward, I don't know how long, I managed to get a hold of his contact information in Chile, and he answered my card. And he told me that when he went back to his country, he didn't go back to teaching. He joined a commission, a government commission that was in charge of investigating the crimes of the Pinochet dictatorship. And part of that was trying to find missing people, and they will digging out shallow graves. Hence the dream of
The communication of what he
the
was doing.
communication of what he was doing. And I guess that was at that time, I didn't give it any meaning, but what was my question? Going back to using this as a tool, my question was, I wonder, was he doing? Is he teaching? And is everything is okay? Because, back then you're in the US and you're having a good career, and then all of a sudden you need to go back to your country for whatever the reason. I never got into that, but the question was answered. He is working, and of course, nobody's gonna put a piece of paper in my dream to say he is working with a commission investigating the death, the crimes of the dictatorship. No, they put the visual in front of me, and then with the words, he put it together. So there you go, 2 examples. One, I know, sci-fi, but one in real life that you can get into that. I was very young. I was in college, but back then I didn't take it as anything. I didn't take it as this is what you can do, or this is what you came here to do. This is a tool that you can use for whatever. It had to be 30 years after for me to start getting into that. Yeah. I also had this dream, and I had this roommate, my best friend, and she back then she was working along. She was not sleeping. She was, doing the full-time student, and then she worked in a new grocery store. So she put a lot of hours there. And one day that we coincide in the apartment, I was telling her, hey, I have a dream with you. It was lucid dreaming though, because I woke up and we were in the same position. We shared a bedroom. And the dream was that I was talking to this woman or her. And as I was talking to her, she was aging in front of me.
Wow.
And that was the first time that I had a dream like that, or had the visual of somebody that it's like, I'm talking to you now and you start growing gray hair and all the wrinkles. And I told her that. And back then I didn't know that she was in the typical Caribbean spiritual practices that come from African religions. And she is a trance channeling. She has mediumship. And she explained to me that that's one of the, in their belief back then, that that's another discussion in their core. The core of their beliefs is that there are this pantheon of deities, and that's one of them. And a goddess, in a matter of speaking, or spirit, a big spirit, that is called La Baronesa del Cementerio. It's kind of the graveyard goddess, or the lady of the graveyard. And that's one of the ways she presents to the people that who channel her. That's how she explained that to me. But again, you have to be in that system of beliefs. I wasn't, but I guess because she wasn't sleeping and she was too busy, there was something that this spirit, or this essence, that disguises herself as a deity. That's how I visualize that, because I don't believe in the gods and goddesses of that. And I don't mean any offense to anybody listening to this podcast. It's just I'm presenting the 2 points of view. My point of view is this spirit needed to communicate something to her, so she picked whatever channel was available.
You were the vessel available.
And I was closest to her. So that's how she explained that to me. I don't remember what the message was, but she said, yeah, that's the lady of the cemetery.
Interesting.
Yeah, and in the Yoruba, well, not Yoruba, Regla Lukumi, two different things. But people call it Yoruba. Yoruba is a nation, it's a tribe and a language. It's not a religion. You have this goddess, Oya, who is, it's not exactly death. Death is Iku, a different entity, but Oya is like that entity that is in between the two realms of life and death. And that's her realm, that's her domain.
So like she's the one who helped you cross or stay.
Yeah, and that's one of what they call it, the presentations. And they accept that an entity can present themselves to you in different ways. So anyway, I'm digressing here. I'm talking about African Caribbean religions. It's not the subject of this.
But regardless of the spiritual practice, spirit can still come through and communicate with you. It doesn't even matter what your belief are. It's across the board, whether you are, like I said, again, practicing the spiritual arts, or whether you're mainstream Christian or anything else. They want to connect. They're going to give you this message. I know that anytime someone of particular importance of hey, pay attention, spirit would show me them in communication, in a dream. And I would see them, talk to them, basically like get to know who they were. That way, when I would meet with them in the 3D, I would know, hey, pay attention. This is the one. You've already been preempted. This is who's coming in. And I always found that interesting. That one started back when I was a teenager, when I started noticing that important people in my life were coming to me in the dream state before they came to me in the physical. One of the other things I thought was really interesting, that it had to do like an older aunt, uncle, grandparent, and they were communicating. They were communicating to me on the phone in my dream. There would be, do you remember those like phones from like the 50s through the 80s? You know, you had the handset, some of them had the buttons to dial on the
Oh, yeah,
handset.
yeah.
Okay. One of the dreams, we're packing up the home that we lived in before this one. And I see this phone on the counter in the kitchen, and it's not plugged into anything. You see the outlet, it's unplugged. And the phone starts ringing, and I look at it, and it's like, that's impossible. You know, it's ringing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't pay attention, you know, I just kind of keep going back to my folding, but it rings like 3 or 4 times, and finally I go over there. And I have the cord in one hand and I'm looking at it. So I pick up the handset and I'm like, hello. And it's my great grandfather who passed away when I was in junior high school, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling me, he goes, hello, I just want to say that I'm with y'all and everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I said, everything? And he goes, yes, you don't have to worry. Everything's going to be okay. And it's like, okay. And he goes, I just wanted to make sure you got the message. And, you know, it was a very short phone call. And I told my father, this was before he passed, like within the few months there. And I said, hey, you won't believe who sent a message last night. He was a believer also, and he had his gifts. And I told him, I said, my great grandfather and my dad and his grandfather were extremely close. Like that was his hero growing up. That's who he wanted to be like as a grandparent, that kind of, you know, relationship they had. He goes, and he told you everything's going to be okay. And I said, yeah. And he wanted a little more. He goes, was it about my health? I said, you know what? I felt like it was full circle. Everything that I'm worried about you. I'm worried about what's going to happen afterwards. And we're in the middle of a move. And it's funny that he calls in the middle of this move. So I know that this move that I know is coming, everything's going to be smooth sailing too. And, you know, I found that to be comforting, because as my father's last couple of weeks of his life were really, really hard on me. And I felt like I had really championed for him to even get proper medical care. But then again, I also knew who was meeting him at that time before he crossed over, because, you know, they start talking to them and they're receiving gifts of food and things like that. So it was really beautiful to see them reconnecting at that point too. The other one is when my sister was expecting, and my uncle, who was a favorite uncle of all of ours, he was that bachelor uncle who all the nieces and nephews just, you know, he spoiled them. And he was in the hospital, and she's expecting a baby, but she didn't know the sex of the baby. So
Okay.
in the dream, he calls her, and then he calls. The interesting thing is, in the hour of his passing, the dream is happening with the phone call. Then he tells her that she's having a baby girl and the baby's going to be fine. This
Oh,
baby
wow.
girl is born. My sister goes into labor while we're at my uncle's funeral.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, it was like, we're blocked in. How do I get you to the hospital? And my niece is like the embodiment of my uncle, that same kind of, everybody is my friend, loves to be busy, just loves little kids. You know, ever since she was a little bitty, she loved babies and kids. She had this connection, but it was so weird that here in this hour of him passing, his soul is calling her to reassure her
Hmm.
that, this baby's going to be watched over, and it's a girl, and, just to get that message. It always fascinates me how you will get your messages.
Yes.
They will come through. Just be open to this, really, it happens, it
Yeah.
happens across the board. And I always love that, to be able to receive a message, to be able to give a message, to set that intention. Like I said, before I go to sleep, I will, if something is weighing on me, I have that intuition that someone isn't, in a place of peace, I'll make it a point to pop over in their dreams and say, it's kind of tap on them. I just want you to know it's going to be okay.
So you have done that. You
I
started,
travel.
you did the travel for the purpose of helping out.
Yeah.
And do they receive the message?
Yeah,
Do
I'll
they
get a phone call.
call,
You
do
were in
they
my
call
dreams last
you?
night. Yeah, they'll text, they'll call. You were in my dreams last night. You were telling me it's going to be okay. It's like, well, I trust my intuition. I always tell you that. I don't question it. I just trust it. And it
Yeah.
was telling me you needed reassurance. You needed this extra. So I'm there for you. They brought it to me. I'm gonna give it to you. I said so.
You
And then
know,
they'll
this,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's interesting because your guides do the same thing. That's supposed to be their job, although I
It
say
is,
that's a gravy job. But anyway, that's
right?
me and my
Like
guides. We have issues, but it seems that in our 3D, we only take that kind of reassurances from non-figure, like in that case, you
the
to your
familiar.
clients. Back in my experiences, my past co-workers, because those were the figures that had my trust and my respect. But those are
Exactly.
your guides utilizing a medium or the channel that is available to communicate. I learned that later. I said, okay, this is the only language that she understands. Let's speak her language.
Yeah.
And to say, the reason I feel compelled to say this is because if people get that message from the actual guide, a figure, male, female, whatever, that they don't recognize, they're going to dismiss it. They would
Exactly.
rather take the message from a 3D body that is familiar. But the reality is it comes through your guides, or another way, going back to the teachings of Jamie, is that agreement, that permission has been granted for you. It's not that you are invading anybody's privacy or anybody's most intimate space. That
Sacred.
is the agreement.
Yes.
If it comes through, it's because at a higher level, we accepted that.
Had a dream and you've got a certain problem on, should I accept this new job? Yes. What should I do? What should I not do? And in your dream, Sylvester the cat comes up and says, suffer and succotash, just take the job. You're going to be like, what the heck was that about? Now I feel stupid. A cartoon figure's telling me, you're not going to take that message. You have a loved one, a familiar, a trusted, a mentor. Someone comes in and you're like, that's my sign. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. And same thing happened with people like in mainstream religion, Christianity. I will never forget this lady. She owned many years ago, almost, I'm going to say 20 years, back in my hometown. She owned aesthetics clinics. She was an esthetician. And she was a very Christian, very devoted. She was a woman of faith, truly. And it's very interesting because she will never do anything that didn't come through guidance in prayer, which is what we call setting the intention and
Yeah.
trust that you're going to get the guidance. You see, we're not that different.
No,
But
we're not.
in her frame of beliefs, it was the belief in Christ, that she will go, and she was very serious about that. She was telling me about a story. It was something that had to do with business. and she was pregnant, or she had recently had a baby. She had many things going on. And she said that she spent that night in prayer with the question again. Be deliberate in your question, because these people, they're very deliberate.
Yes.
Lord, what should I do? And she got her answer. Her prayer was answered. And I guess the problem that I have with that approach is that they believe that something was granted to them as a reward or something. No, nothing was granted. You got the answer from your guidance that you were looking for.
You were
It's not an
asking,
award.
yeah.
Ask and you shall receive. And exactly. And she went with that guidance in that direction for her business. That was the path of success, just because she has so much faith and trust in her guidance. And that's how she carried herself through her life. You know, this was not a person who was preaching to me in that moment. She was not quoting verses from a sacred book. She was talking about her experience of putting all her trust in being deliberate about her question and open to receive the guidance. That's all we're talking about here.
Be open. Exactly. Be open, because it can come to you in many different forms. But if we're specifically speaking, about your messages like this, be open, be specific with the question. Don't just say yes or no. What should I do? Yes or no? Yes or no about the situation with job, the relationship, the vehicle, however you want to do it. Be specific. Be very specific.
Exactly. And we talk in our system of belief. We don't talk like, tell me what to do. The right question is this aligned with my purpose?
Yeah.
And I was listening to this guy that I follow, Gasper Dolinar. He's a young artist. He's a painter from Slovenia, and he has a YouTube channel. And he, on a daily basis, he delivers messages. He started with following his inspiration in his paintings, which are beautiful, beautiful art. And the other night, 2 nights ago, he said, this is the question that is going to change your vibration. And it is. In everything, in the choices we make, because we're making choices since the moment that we wake up, even when we are in the astral plane, is this, or even do nothing is a choice.
Exactly.
So he says, every moment you're making a choice. Sometimes the choice is as simple that one of two things. But the question is this choice to my benefit, or is aligned with my purpose? It will help my purpose. It will help who I want to become. That's all you need to do. And if you're not sure, so ask for the guidance. As for collaborators, which is what happened in that episode of Doctor Who, I can see that happening if the individuals were open to that, happening in conventional medicine, getting together as human beings and going and explore in that realm without the titles, the seniority, the position, just as the abilities, the talents of your soul will come in that moment, in that moment of inspiration.
I think it's interesting because I had just seen something earlier too about everything is a decision. You do something or you do nothing, that's a decision. If you choose to ask for the others to come in and collaborate with you, that's a decision. Asking for help, not asking for help, but you're correct from the moment you get up. So, start setting that intention. Is this aligned with my highest path and purpose? Open up the road of where I'm supposed to be and block the things that are not meant for me. And when you start implementing these things, you realize that your guidance is really opening up those paths, the guidance that you're receiving. You're going to realize that it doesn't feel so much like a struggle over the small things, because you're finding peace, strength, clarity, and utilizing everything that's right in front of you, everything that's available to you.
Clarity about all things. Clarity seems to be challenging to get to that point that you feel it there. Sometimes I think this is not a matter of putting a list of non-disputed facts. This is a feeling that you get that clarity. Why
Yes.
is it so hard for people to accept something that feels right? Why we have built this kind of resistance that's, it all comes into the phrase, it's too good to be true. And I think we have damage. We have caused ourselves some serious damage by adopting the philosophy too good to be true. I understand where it comes from, but I guess we don't want to open ourselves that there are good things and we are here to be happy and to fulfill our purpose. That's what I believe, that too good to be true comes from.
I mean, you think about the lottery. Somebody's going to win it. Why not you? Why not me?
Yeah, every day. What is so impossible about winning the lottery? Sometimes more than $1 million go to one person.
Yeah.
So
some people win multiple jackpots. You know, this person has won 3 multi-million-dollar drawings.
Yeah, 0 winners. Yeah. And some people meet a person and in 2 weeks they marry and they live happily ever after. I've seen that. I've seen that 2 times.
They just know.
They just know and trusted that kind of guidance. Of course, you're going to find the detractors that are going to say, oh, but on the same token, there are people who have done the same stupid thing, they label it, and it doesn't go that well. It turns in a horror story. But again, what was your alignment? Or I don't believe that that happens just random. There had to be the signs there. Your guidance should have point to you that that was not the path, that was not going to happen. Let that be in a dream, or that feeling that you had, that internal doubt, that feeling in the pit of your stomach, or that feeling empty-hearted, or not having that joy. Those are the signs. Don't pin it on mood swings, or that nobody's perfect. Yeah, nobody's perfect. Everybody's in a journey of learning. But the signs are always there. You have to trust your guidance.
And those who are resistant and keep picking the same kind of person that they know doesn't work for them.
Also, that's easy to see if you have a pattern. And in dreams, how those things come up, at least what I have seen. I don't know what's your experience or your client's experience. It's like watching a rerun. In your dreams, they play the same movie over and over and over.
I love that.
don't you get tired of the same show? Well, I mean, I don't get tired of Doctor Who, but anyways, but it's something that is a different emotion. You have a scale, the emotional scale, and you see that rerun in your dream, and you have this sour taste in your mouth, the bitter taste in your mouth. The anger starts building up, that you wake up and you're already mad or pissed off about something. But it's that rerun. Was that rerun telling you that you are in a pattern that needs to be broken?
Yes, because so many I've seen gravitate to the same pattern because it's familiar.
Yeah, well, we are wired for familiarity.
They already know it's not going to work. They already know it's not going to last. They're just going to ride it for what it will, versus the uncertainty of possibly being happy with this person over here. Let's change that. Ask for that. Ask for the signs. Ask for the dream confirmation that this new person that you're being intrigued with, that it's a good thing to go towards there, or should that path be blocked? ask for that rather than keep living and spinning your wheels and living a life not well lived.
Yeah, that internal dialogue in 3D in our waking hours, that internal dialogue, that doesn't help. Like that overthinking. And I guess we are digressing on the subject, but these
Yes.
things happen because sometimes we wake up from the dream, and as opposed to start thinking about the dream or writing down the dream, we go into the what if 3D thinking. As I'm getting older, one of the things that I learned is, there are things that you think about, and there are things that you definitely don't.
Yes.
Like, for instance, you are making a decision whether or not to run this piece of equipment for another 18 months. That's something you need to think about and put together a list of facts.
Yes.
I'm gonna go today to the mall, and oh, by the way, I'm seeing this restaurant that I haven't been to in a while. Let me stop there for lunch. You don't need to think about that. Just do it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Once I got out of the restaurant, it's been a while since I haven't been to that store. Do I need something to buy from there? How long I'm gonna be there, and start thinking, should I go or not? No, you don't think about that. You just go. It's that simple. But we find people that are overthinking the mundane. And they might say, well, but a relationship is a serious thing to think about.
Is it?
Well, are you going to open a joint bank account right now? Because that's something that you might need to think about. But just getting into studying the relationship, just see how it goes. I don't know. I mean, maybe this person woke up and having that feeling, that nice warm feeling, that vibe in your skin or in everything, but then they wake themselves up from that feeling, and but I was thinking. No, don't
overthink the happiness. It's just
overthink the happiness.
Gravitate to it. Just I find myself repeating that to a lot of young people. Stop overthinking it. Just enjoy it. If it's not a life or death situation, enjoy. Just enjoy.
And even when it comes to life or death, and I know that there are a lot of people that might have strong feelings about this, again, because it's the school of thought they come from, or their upbringing, or their beliefs. But cases in life or death, like you see in your previous profession, should I pursue treatment for this illness, knowing that I'm going to die anyway, and this is going to buy me a few months? That's a major thing.
That is. That's a major point in the road. And even then it becomes your family's convictions, because so many people, when they find themselves that ill, the family comes in with their own beliefs and worries and concerns, and the patient ends up pretty much going with what the family wanted because it'll make them feel better. Their self-care just
that emotional guilt, as opposed to thinking what is best for themselves, and they block the guidance. That person might have dreams pointed on the opposite way. Then they wake up and they question that this cannot be a good dream, because if I choose that path, my family will suffer. What about your own mission?
Waking up and saying, I had a nightmare, so-and-so died. Was it a premonition? Was it something you needed to address? Are you listening to their cares, the patient's wishes? Or are you just going through your emotions because you're losing them? It's a very real situation that we're facing right now, as I was explaining earlier with my mother's health, that it's not being taken well by some. Some are like, we'll leave no stone unturned. And some are, what is her quality of life?
Yeah.
Does she look happy? Does she look like she's just enjoying every breath she takes? It's not heartless, it's not cruel. It's asking them, what are your wishes, and making them comfortable at this time.
What's in your Akash? It's a concept that not everybody understands, but what is in the Akash? was
Yeah.
that physical condition in your Akash. Because if
Yes.
it's in your Akash, that's part of the things you sign up for. And I know that this is a very hard pill to swallow for many people. It's in the cash is part of the learning experience that soul wanted
Agreed.
to have.
Yes.
And now we have these other souls. And I always found that interesting because if we choose our family way ahead of incarnating, why are we choosing family that are in conflicting beliefs? Because as a soul, we chose that path. It's that I'm going to go through the experience of having this terminal illness in a human body, and I'll learn from that, and I share my learning with others. But at the same time, I'm picking these parents or these siblings. And when we are in 3D and forget, when we're incarnated and forget, those that agree to come with us for this start putting the blockages to our soul's mission. And that's something that fascinates me.
Yes.
Because I was like, well, what's the point of all this? And then I start thinking.
Hence the term, I feel lost. I don't know my
feel-
purpose. I don't know where I'm going. And I usually take that as a big indicator that they have lost sight of what their mission, their goal was to come to Earth and you know, what they were trying to learn. And so a lot of times I'll backtrack them, you know, at what point?
How you
what was
do
going
that?
on? Well,
How
I
you
ask them, at
you
what
guide
point?
them?
Yeah. At what point do you feel, did you first notice this coming, you know, that you started feeling lost? You know, what were your decision points? What was going on in your life at that point? Why did you, you know, what led you down this path? What was all the events? Because, you know, a lot of times they're at that major crossroads. Am I going to go left or right? One is harder and unknown, one is familiar. And even though it's full of bad choices and they think that they've memorized the landmines, they know it's going to be a hard path. And the further they get from where they're supposed to be, the more lost they feel. And so then, you know, I work with them to start saying, let's visit your cache. Let's see what the fears were that drove you to these decisions. And because it's going to be up to them. I always tell them, this is in your power. It's going to be up to you. I can tell you what to do. I give you all the tools, but it's up to you to use them. Are you happy on this path? Do you want to continue, or do you want to start backtracking a little and get back over there where you're supposed to be? And it is interesting to see them, like that light bulb goes off and they're like, wow, yeah, because in that period of feeling lost, they forget they have the power. They forget their power to get back on the, you know, the right track, to get, you know, reel in that GPS, whatever you have to do to get you back where you know. But it is also a good feeling to see that burden lifted off of them when they start rebuilding their life and getting back, when it comes back with familiarity. I do like that. You
tell them that they have the power, but I guess it's challenging because they have relinquished their power to a higher power or to a figure of God. They don't think they're worthy. And well, we are surrounded with that. I have an interesting proposition for people that are in a path, in that path of resistance and powerlessness. What if for one night only, go to sleep and set your intention to be open to see the what if? What if I have it my way? What if I choose as a trial? What if I choose this other path and just let it come through? And don't judge the experience, and don't wake up thinking that you have to do anything about it. Just observe the experience like you're watching a movie. Let that movie play in the astral plane. And when and if you feel ready to take that script and act on it on 3D, you know it's there.
Yes. you know that it's all right there. It's kind of like a good book that you pick up, put on the coffee table. You pick it up when you're ready. You have that power.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's what I will propose if I will see
Yeah.
clients. I don't see
Yes.
clients, but I will be curious if you have somebody that is up for that kind of experiment, that is in that position of resistance and feeling so powerless. I know that Abby
I
does
actually
the
do.
getting in the dreams
Uh-huh.
of other people to gather information or to try to change things. She couldn't be with us today. I think I'm gonna do a part 2 about this.
Yeah.
She can share her
Mhm.
experiences, but when she is working with a client that is probably too young, or there are people that have no situational awareness and they cannot even explain how they have got to that place or why
That's
they
true.
feel that way. And that is a good tool. This is a good tool to go
Mhm.
into that dream space to gather information, to do a deep dive to better help that person. And again, for those listening at this point of this podcast, that is not spying or violating any private or sacred space. There, in that astral level, there is an implied agreement
Mhm.
that the person, the light worker that is going to help you, can do these things for
Yeah.
your greater good.
Mhm.
I want
Because
to
you're
again
not
put that
going any.
disclaimer out.
Mhm. I mean, as I do always, ask, may I have your permission? Do I have your permission to do XYZ when we're going to work together? So do I have, because I do
Mhm,
believe that your energy, your body is sacred. And I'm like, you're going to feel, and it's interesting because they always tell me, it's like, I felt that like when I do chakra readings or I'm doing a
mhm.
medical intuitive scan. It's always interesting, but they are aware of your energy coming to them. And so in some,
Yeah,
way, shape, or form, they should be able to give you confirmation, I felt you there. So I think that's interesting. And if anybody, listening would, wants to try that, saying,
yeah,
show me, what would happen, show me what I'm looking at
yeah,
if I go this route, and be open to it, be open and take
yeah.
notes, and who knows?
Be open, taking notes. Well, people open their eyes in the morning and they grab their phone. We're supposed to get into the Facebook or the Instagram. Open the recording app and just talk about your dream. You
Yeah,
don't have to analyze it the way you're talking. Just spill it out like you saw it.
yeah. And even if you don't remember the dream, think about the feeling when you wake up.
That too.
Did you wake up feeling just reassured and comforted? Things like that. You know that there's something different because you didn't just wake up with, oh my gosh, I got to go, ABC, ABC. You're waking up and you're taking a deep breath and you feel this comforting reassurance that something has happened, something is okay, and make that memo too. And then at the
Mm,
end of the day, see what happened. But you're being reassured, you know,
yeah,
from your dream space that it's all going to be okay.
absolutely. And I want to basically end with tagging on what you said, how you feel, because one of the things that we're going to talk in upcoming episodes is the rewiring, and the rewiring your brain and your body. You need to start training your body for those elevated emotions, because when your body and your mind are used to the low vibration or expecting not the best, that's something that needs to be changed, and it only will happen with practice.
Yes.
So waking up from that dream, how you felt, as opposed, like Helen just said, I need to get to A, B, and C, or this is the crappy day that I'm going to have today. No, take a couple of minutes, get into that dream, get in that feeling. And if it was something that made you feel good, feel it and record it in your memory, in your cells, in your body, so you can start creating the habit of feeling better. With feeling better, you're going to be open to that kind of communication, it becomes easier and easier to get to that state.
It's like saying, I'm accepting the great day and all the wonderful things that are about to happen.
Absolutely.
And jump out of bed with that mindset, call it to you, speak it, manifest it, live it.
Live it, live it. Oh, Helen, it's been a great conversation like always. Thank you so
Always.
much for being with us today. Check the links below and check our podcast wherever you get your podcast from. You have a dream that you want to talk about, sign up for our mailing list and tell us your dream. And until next time, sweet dreams.